Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here, mental edge training coach. Today, I'll be talking to Lee Stevens. Lee Stevens was a first round pick in 1986 with the Angels out of Kansas. Had an amazing career in the big leagues, played for a couple different teams. We're going to talk about his story, his career, how he got called up to the big leagues, his hitting philosophy as he was a hitting coach, and just kind of the mental part of the aspect of hitting, and where he was able to also, after his playing career, he was diagnosed with some cancer and how he has battled through that and how baseball and the mental game help him get through that. So enjoy this conversation with Lee Stevens. All right, Lee Stevens, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on board. I kind of reached out to Lee. We were Facebook friends. We've never really formally met each other, just played against each other. Been following some of your stuff on your Facebook page and some of the life stuff that you've been going through. But we're gonna get into kind of the struggle that or the what happened with the cancer sort of things here. But I want to talk and go all the way back to what was Lee Stevens like? Because you grew up in Kansas, correct?
Right, right.
Right. So what was your whole like high school recruiting process like?
Well, we didn't even have high school baseball until my senior year. So I played American Legion in the summer. My junior year in the summer, Legion balls and scouts would come out to watch one of our pitchers. He was a senior, left-handed guy threw. At the time he threw 90 miles an hour, which at the time was, that was gas in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so they came out to watch him, for a couple game series or whatever, and I had a really great weekend swinging a bat, and I kind of like got on the map, so to speak. And then luckily, my senior year, we got high school baseball, so I got to play in the spring right before the draft. So I kind of got noticed, and then I got to play. They got to see me play in the spring in Kansas right before the draft, and then I get drafted, and 35 years later, here I am. So it was a really fast process. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, I'm drafted, and I'm gone playing for 17 years.
Okay. Now, did you so were you drafted out of high school or did you end up going to college first?
No, I drafted out of high school. Yep, I was going to go to the University of Arkansas, but the Angels drafted me in the first round, and it was kind of a no-brainer. 1986. So yeah,
Yeah.
I took off. Yeah.
You took off. Yeah. So what you're a big dude. What was your size coming out of high school?
When I graduated, the height I am now is 6'4", 200 pounds coming out of high school. So I wasn't a huge guy by any means, but 6'4", 200. I was pretty athletic. Played basketball and baseball, obviously. So that's where I started.
Yeah. Okay. So you're playing different sports, obviously cold in Kansas, right? You can't play baseball year round,
Right.
right?
So
It,
growing up, I played hockey. I played hockey in the winter, and I played baseball in the summer. That was when I was in the Kansas City area, and then we moved to Lawrence, Kansas, which didn't have hockey. So I picked up a basketball. I played that in the winter, which led right into baseball. So that was my conditioning, and I liked basketball. So I played basketball, and then went into baseball in the spring.
Outstanding. Now you mainly played first base in the big leagues, correct?
Yeah.
Did you ever pitch growing up or play in the outfield as a lefty?
Yeah, I played the outfield. And, in high school, I played center field, and then I pitched a little bit in high school. I didn't want to hurt my arm. I wasn't
Mhm.
a good pitcher by any means, so I just, I kind of closed a little bit maybe my senior year,
Okay.
but it wasn't something that interested me, and I didn't want to do something and hurt my arm or whatnot. So, but I played the outfield, and then after I got drafted, I played a lot of outfield in the minor leagues. When I got drafted by the Angels, Wally Joyner was there first, so
Yeah.
they tried making me more of an outfielder and see what happened. And then I kind of ended up playing my way back into first base.
Okay.
But that was my natural position and my best position. So yeah,
Yeah, that was kind of at the height of like Wally World,
yeah, it
right?
was, it was. Yeah, he was big there, and
Yeah.
for good reason. He was a
Yeah.
heck of a player. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to spend and meet Wally Joyner when I first got married. I was living out in the Provo area. My wife was she had
Okay.
gone to BYU. And so we got married living in Las Vegas, going to Utah, Provo area. I was like, well, it's freezing here. There's snow everywhere. And
Yeah.
so we ended up working in a place called the Smith Fieldhouse at BYU. And Wally Joyner he lived in that area and that's where he worked out of. And I got to meet him and we got to hit a little bit. Right. And so at this point, he was on the very like tail end of his career. But you're like, God, this guy's established himself. I'm like, Wally World, right? Late 80s, just crushing it everywhere. So what was that like for you? You sort of first round pick by the Angels. That was in 86. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yep.
So 86. So what was the minor league system like for you? Because you're a first baseman. I'm sure you're probably thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to hit and I'm gonna have to hit for power. What was your approach like going into that?
It was just I just went to play. You know what I mean? I wasn't looking at who was where. I wasn't looking at Wally at first up there, and David. I think I was just kind of too stupid to really get into all that. I was just
Mm.
wherever they sent me, I just played. I just tried to do the best I could. It was kind of the what what happens happens kind of deal. I wasn't like trying to take his job. I wasn't
Yeah.
going for that job. I was just trying to get my feet on the ground as an 18-year-old kid coming out of high school, just get into pro ball. What is pro ball? And just try to go out there and perform. It wasn't anything else on my mind. I was just trying to get to the big leagues.
Yeah.
Whether it was with them or somebody, I was just trying to get to the big leagues.
Yeah. Which is a great approach, right? Because then you're not worried, concerned about what the guy ahead of you is doing. You're just focused on you.
Yeah, I never, and I saw that a lot when I coached for the Rockies for a while.
Mhm.
13 to 19 as minor league hitting coach, and I dealt with that a lot with the players. They're, obviously social media brings a lot of that in there, but they're like, oh, this guy's going to Double A and I'm going to A ball. This guy's going to Triple A and I'm in Double A. And they're really worried. They're tracking what those guys were doing ahead of them.
Yeah.
I didn't care what the first baseman was doing in Double A when I was in A ball. You know what I mean? It didn't concern me whatever. I was just trying to do my job. I was just trying to
Mhm.
hit, just keep moving up, keep moving up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my concern was literally just me and trying to be the best player that I could be at that time.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting because you think about when you get eventually called up to the big leagues, like they're calling up you, right? It's an individual thing because you've done some things on the field that, like, yeah, we
Right.
need this guy, right, at that point. And so, when did you make your major league debut, and what was that story like?
It was July of 1990. I was in AAA at the time with the Angels up in Edmonton. We were playing. We were in Portland, Oregon at the time, and AAA manager just called me one night after the game and said I was going up the next day. Wally got hurt. He had a
Mm.
knee issue or something like that, so he was going on the DL or whatever. And they called me up in the middle of July. And next thing I know, I'm going from Portland to Anaheim. They were at home, so I fly into Anaheim, and none of my equipment makes it. So, I mean, I think I had my luggage, but for some reason, my baseball stuff didn't make it. So I used Wally's first baseman's glove, borrowed some cleats from Mike Fetter, and I used Dante Bichette's bat. I got my first three hits with Dante Bichette bat. It's kind of cool thing because
Yeah,
he was such a great player. And
yeah,
so yeah, I didn't even have my stuff for my debut and didn't even get a hit with my own bat. So
that's
I
awesome.
kind of a funny story, but I didn't even have my stuff. So but I just made the best of it. And it was very surreal. I mean, you know how the first time is. It's the least nervous game you'll ever play because you're just in kind of awe and you're in surreal and your instincts just take over and you just go out and play. And then
Mhm.
after that, you start getting nervous,
Yeah,
because
you
then you
start
come,
thinking.
yeah, because then you start, then you wake up the next day, you wake up, you're like, oh, I got to do this again. Oh, this is a big
Yeah,
league. So it goes downhill for that.
that's right. Yeah, so that was that with the Angels?
Yep, that was
The
with the
debut?
Angels. Yep,
That was with the Angels. And what year was that?
that was 1990.
1990. Okay. So I'm thinking 1990 personally. So I think we're about 10 years apart, roughly.
Yeah, yeah.
So 1990. And then what's that like for you in regards to, like, you're a left-handed hitter, power hitter, right? You had Wally Joyner still there, right? Was that a situation where you're like, okay, I'm going to play occasionally, maybe pinch hit against righties? Where were you at there?
Well, I ended up playing the rest of that year there, that half season or whatever, and then I went back to the minor leagues, the next year. Well, I came back healthy in '91, and then I got a September call up in '91 and did pretty well. And then Wally and the Angels had some contract differences or whatever. They couldn't get him signed to a deal, so
Mm.
that's when I think they traded him. And then I got the job in '92. So again, I was just kind of on the back burner in my mind with it. I was just trying to stay there in whatever capacity, just trying to I was just kind of oblivious to what he was doing. It was just
Right.
taking care of myself a little bit.
Yeah. That's I think that's great advice, right? Is we get too wrapped up in what other people are doing and we start maybe getting out of our game plan, if you will, right?
Right.
And trying to do that. So now I have written down you play with the Angels, Rangers, Expos, and Indians in the big leagues.
Yeah.
So I believe I played against you in the middle of your career. I think you might have either Expos and maybe the Rangers a little bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it was because that was late '90s with the Rangers, and then 2000, 2001, and two with Montreal. So I think was
yeah,
it Pittsburgh then?
in Pittsburgh at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think it was a little bit of spring training in there, and then a little bit maybe in Montreal, right?
yeah,
Um, so you got to play like one guy that just comes into mind immediately is like Vlad Guerrero,
right.
right?
Okay.
And you played against Moises Alou, I'm sure a lot of other guys. So what were some of the ideas or tips that any of those guys ever talk hitting with you, and what was maybe those conversations like?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I was younger, I was really lucky because when I first came up with the Angels, there were a lot of older guys there.
Mm,
The Angels had a lot of older guys. Gary Gaetti was there, Dave Winfield was there, Hubie Brooks was there, Alan Davis. Um, so I didn't probably pick their brains as much as I should have. But they kind of, they tried to help me as much as they could. And then I go to the Rangers and I get to play with Will Clark. I get to play with Rafael Palmeiro and
mm,
sit and pick their brains. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And even some pitchers. As I got older, I learned to pick brains of pitchers too, on how they might pitch me, how they pitch lefties that are similar to me or whatever. Vladdy wasn't like that guy that I really went to for advice, but people don't realize about Vladdy is he had a game plan when he was up there. They kind of project him as this free swinger and just swinging everything.
Yeah.
He really wasn't. He had an idea what he wanted to do with this guy, and his hand-eye cut was just incredible. He could hit pitches that weren't strikes, for homers.
Hmm.
But that guy had a game plan. He really did, and you as as a player, as you get older and older, you get more into that game plan and get off your mechanics and get into a game plan on what the guy has and what he's trying to do to you and what your strengths are and all that. So it's just every year. I was still learning my last year, so it's not a process where okay I got it now it's done. So it's a continual evolving thing to learn and get your game plan set.
Yeah, you said something that stood out to me. Like as you got older, you worried less about the mechanical side of things because you're probably already pretty solidified there. Like I'm good. Like my swing's tight. I feel comfortable. I'm confident. Maybe adjustments here and there, right?
Well, I didn't until I went to Japan. When I
Okay.
went to my last year '92 with the Angels, I got the job when Wally got traded, and I was just awful. I had a terrible year. They traded me to Montreal actually that year, and I went to
Mm,
spring training and got released, and then I ended up going to Syracuse, New York, and playing AAA with the Blue Jays. Had very subpar in AAA. It's kind of at the low part of my career, and then Japan happened. So I go to Japan, and I was forced into a situation where I had to figure it out on my own, or I was going to be done.
okay.
And back in the states the prior years, I was listening to everybody. What's his advice? What's his advice? I had 15 coaches in my ear trying to sort all out that information. And when I went to Japan, a guy named Ralph Bryant, who was a legend over there at the time when I went over there,
Hmm.
a couple home run titles, MVP season, left-handed power hitting guy. He had 35 to 50 home runs every year, but he struck out 225 times a year and 140 game season. But it didn't bother him. He didn't care.
Hmm. Yeah.
So he took me under his wing, and I went over there, and I had to figure it out on my own. And the day that I picked his stance, and all I worried about was being on time, is when my career took off. I had a couple good years in Japan. After the second year, they released me, so I come back to the States and I signed with Texas, and then my career just boom took off, and I got another 7 years in the big leagues when I came back because
Okay.
all I worried about was being on time and just stuck with the stance, and things took off for me. That was my game plan. That was the beginning kind of my game plan life.
Yeah. Okay. So you simplify things big time then. And it,
Absolutely, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I watched. I got benched real early over there, and I started kind of watching some of the Japanese guys and what they do with their hands, and some other things. I just came up with a stance, changed my hands a little bit. And all I worried about was being on time and getting that front foot down.
Mm,
And then how things work out are unbelievable. I come back and I sign with Texas, and who's there in Texas? Rudy Jaramillo,
mm.
who was all about get your hands separated and get that foot down. And that, at the time, that's what I stumbled onto in Japan. And then I get with him, and he just refines it even more. And then I had some good years after that. So the stars lined up mentally, physically, and team wise, and coach wise, and everything just took off from there.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard that name numerous times. Rudy Amarillo,
Yeah,
one of the best
he's great.
coaches.
He's great. Not only just a great coach, and he's not overly mechanic, but I mean the guy has your back.
Yeah,
I mean, if you work hard and you try, I mean that guy has your back. I mean everybody wants a coach like that. So
yeah.
it was great to have him in my life.
Okay. So with the Rangers, you mentioned like Paul Merrow, Will Clark was in there, Pudge Rodriguez around, Juan
Yep.
Gonzalez, Dean
Pudge was there.
Palmer.
Juan Gonzalez there. Pudge was there. Todd Seal was there. Rusty Greer. I mean, I hit. I was hitting pretty good, and I was hitting eighth in the lineup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I hit eighth one year. I hit like 24 homers and drove in 80 something. And I was hitting eighth, but I was fine with it. Hide down there in the
Yeah.
bottom a little bit, but that's how good some of those teams were that I got to play on there. And great guys and great experience.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so you had a great career. You played for a long time, and then you said you got into where you were a hitting coach in the minor league side. Is that correct?
Yeah, with the Rockies,
With the
2013 through.
Rockies.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what was that experience like in working with younger hitters?
that was a great experience. First of all, you get to be on the other side of the door. And
Hmm.
then, you never know kind of what goes on the other side of the door as a player because you show up, you get dressed, and you go play, and you're trying to do your thing. I had no idea what was going on behind doors. And then to be on that side of the door was very enlightening. To go, oh wow, this is what they've been saying about us for all those years.
Right.
So it was very interesting, and it was, and the hardest part was always spring training. But those cut days that come up,
Yeah.
and everybody, players for sure, you kind of come in and sometimes you're on eggshells a little bit. And then as a coach being on the other side, already knowing that list a little bit of who they're going to release the next day, was that was the hardest part of being a coach. Is those days, and being in those guys' shoes before. So, but the preparation that coaches do, people, people don't realize, and I think a lot of players don't realize until you're put in that situation. A lot. I mean, we're one of the first ones there, one of the last ones to leave.
Hmm.
Doing all this preparation, all this kind of stuff, and it was great. It helped me teach myself a little bit attention to detail on being a coach, on things that I had to be prepared, and things I need to do. So it helped me become a better instructor that I am now, just through that detail situation. So I learned a lot from it, and it's helped me as an instructor, I think, and it's helped me develop patience and understand because you're still dealing with kids. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in rookie ball, and then I was in A ball, and in my last 2 years I was double A. So the guys are all still young, 20s and younger, so they're still kids. So you still have to approach it that way and not assume that they know what's going on, even at that age. So it was very enlightening, and I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, you make a great point. Like assuming just because they're in pro ball, like I think when you maybe talk to high school kids, right? They might have somewhat of an idea what they're doing in the box. Then you get into
Right.
pro ball and they may say they have an approach, but they really don't. They're still probably free swinging a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Some
Were
are.
there
Yeah.
any hitters in particular that you really took to and were able to help develop that's we're seeing now at the higher levels?
I mean, I hope I had an impact on all of them. I try to keep treat them all the same. Obviously, there's those can't miss guys.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough my first year coaching. I had Ryan McMahon in Grand Junction. Brendan Rodgers, Sam
Mhm.
Hilliard. So I had some really good guys that have been playing in the big leagues. For the Rockies now. So I like to hope that I had a impact on them. But I just try to guide those guys in the direction they need to go. They're
Yeah.
so talented. I mean, those guys are all better than I was at that age. So I just try to teach them things that I learned correctly, things I did wrong, and just try to
Mhm.
point them in that direction and just let them go play and go do their thing. And Brian McMahon is the only guy in the 7 years I was coaching. I told him when he was in rookie ball, I said, Brian, you're going to play in the big league. I mean, this guy was, he's 6'3", 6'4", out of high school, unbelievable bat speed,
Yeah.
move, it's a can't miss, you know what I mean? So I just try to put him at ease, you're going to play in the big leagues. Don't get frustrated now. You're going to play. You just keep working and doing your thing. You're going to play in the big leagues. You know what I mean? So just try to just be as positive as I possibly could with all of them, and just keep them going in that right direction.
Yeah, it's when you're a prospect, right, coming up in the minor leagues and you have a spell, right, where it's like, things are not going well, right?
Right.
I remember quite a few of those, and then you start thinking like, man, are they going to send me down? Am I even good enough to be here? Right, a lot of
Right.
thoughts can start creeping
Whew.
in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mr. Negativity. He's that's a bad roommate to have in your head. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
I call him my roommate. We talk to ourselves all day long, and what you have to really learn is that's your roommate,
yeah,
and you can kick your roommate out if you want to, but we let him take over sometimes. So I try to pass that on to my kids that it's up to you on what you think and how you talk to yourself, because how you talk to yourself is huge. You know what I mean? If nobody else is talking positive to you, you better do it yourself, because negativity is very powerful, and in a humbling game anyway. It's a game of failure. Hitting is failure. It's how you deal with the failure that makes you that
mm,
300 hitter or more. So you have to deal with all those type of things.
yeah. And you've been around long enough. Did they start to have, I we kind of played pretty much in the same generation. That you have some 10 years ahead of me here, but um, a lot of the coaches I've talked to, like, you look at now, there's mental skill coaches everywhere in organizations, right? Maybe one or two per organization. They visit each team. Did you start to see that when you were in pro ball as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, well, even as a player, I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with Ken Revisa when I was with the Angels. I don't think I took advantage of it as enough as a player then, but there's still things today that I remember him telling me that I still
Mm.
use. So I know I got something out of it. I maybe not have applied it correctly then,
Yeah,
because it was so new to the game, and I was, stubborn, and you know, thought I could do it on my own type attitude sometimes. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the Rockies have a really good one. They're out there everywhere, and it's as important as anything else. I
mm,
mean, just going out and hitting in the cages is not enough anymore. I mean, working out is just not enough anymore. The mental part of the game obviously has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and the way things are going, that's as important as any other coach on a staff, as far as I'm concerned. Because
yeah,
25, 40 guys, in there, all the pitchers and catchers and whatever. I mean, everybody's different mentally and physically. And if you can try, and you're trying to create cultures, right? All these organizations trying to create cultures to do things a certain way, do things a certain way. Well, you got to have all your guys in the same mental
mm,
level up. I mean, not just physically and all that type of stuff. Pitchers, velocity and all that. I mean, every guy in that locker room has to be on the same mental level for that culture to really work.
yeah,
And so it's a huge part of the game, and I still read up on it a little bit now and remember things I can. And even a kid that I go do a lesson who's 10 years old, I introduce him to stuff like that, because it's never too early. I got introduced to it late, so the earlier these guys get introduced to it, the better they're going to be when it comes time to maybe get drafted, or they do get drafted and go play professionally.
yeah, absolutely. And it those things apply. You know, I'm a huge Ken Arviza fan too, right? Heads up baseball, and I think the Angels was that kind of where he pioneered his career at
I
that being.
think so. I think that's where he started. I mean,
Yeah,
I know it has to be one, because this was, I remember he was in when I first got drafted in '86. We went to a mini cap out in Cal State Fullerton, and Ken was
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So he was, he started in at least '86 for sure. I don't know if that was his first baseball, stuff or whatever.
yeah,
But I got a funny story about Ken Revisa that first week. So I get drafted. In high school, you don't play every day. So we go to this mini camp for a week in Cal State Fullerton University, and we're practicing every day. Practicing, hitting, throwing, ground balls, the whole 9 yards. And like the last day, Ken comes in, and I'm just beat dead tired. I haven't been doing this 7 days a week ever before. So he has all the players lay down on the ground up front of the dugout on the grass, face up, and close our eyes, and we go through this relaxation thing.
Yeah.
So we relax each body part, each limb, kind of relax and breathe and breathe. The next thing I know, I feel like his leg kicking me on the side. So Kim's standing over me and he's kicking me on the side because I fell asleep laying on the grass. So he's waking me up, kicking me, and I'm like, okay, oops. I
Well,
guess
it
I,
worked. You were relaxed,
yeah,
right?
I was definitely relaxed. So I fell asleep on him, but so that was my first Kenner Visa story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've heard that was one of his kind of the relaxation, maybe meditation portion of
Yeah,
his program, if you will, is and I think people still utilize that tool today. And I've certainly used that with
absolutely.
my kids where you can go lay on your bed, on the floor, wherever, and just feel you can squeeze your muscles, right?
Mm,
And then, okay, what does that feel like to let go? Right. You know, to squeeze
exactly.
your hands, tighten your shoulders, your neck, those all those body parts. So you can start to understand what you're how to the kind of the mind body connection, right? Of what that looks like and how does
Absolutely.
it interpret in the box,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So you had an amazing career. Now you are out in the Scottsdale area, is that right?
Yeah.
In Arizona?
I'm in Phoenix. Yeah. Been
So
out here
now
for almost 3 years now.
been out for a few years, and so you an instructor now at DBAT? Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm a DBAT doing, I'm doing lessons and then also do some girls softball on the side a little bit. So
Very
with
nice.
with a gal that used to work out at DBAT. She was a catcher at U of A.
Okay.
Had an unbelievable career. So she started her own organization. So she got me to go out. So we got doing 14U and 16U girls softball on the side. So
Love it.
yeah,
Love it. Now tell me a little bit about we all have some adversity in our life, right? You went through probably plenty of adversity up and downs in the major leagues, minor leagues as a coach. And recently you've been gone and were diagnosed with some cancer.
yeah.
So tell us that story.
Well, when I was coaching with the Rockies, the coaches as well as players get physicals every year. So every year I got my physical just like the players do. And I was 45 when I started working there. I said, like, all right, so every year give me a copy of my blood work just because I was, getting
Mm.
up there a little bit. So I kept getting a copy every year. And then the very last year, 2019, my PSA number, for your prostate was kind of right on the verge. So I kind of took a look at it, whatnot. Didn't think much about it because I just had my mind on coaching, going to do it. So they let me go, and then a year later, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go to the doctor and get my own physical.
Mm.
So I go back to the doctor, go to find a doctor, go get my own physical, blah blah blah. My PSA number is like really high. He said, come back in 3 weeks. Maybe it's a glitch or something like that. So I come back in 3 weeks, it's even higher. He's like, all right, we need to get you to a urologist like yesterday.
Okay.
So then it just started taking off. Biopsy, scans, bone scans, MRIs, CAT scans, whatnot. And then come to find out, he called me on November of 2020, November. My doctor called me and said that prostate cancer. So speed forward a little bit, January 5th, 2021, I had surgery to have it removed. That was the best option after going over everything. So I just had my prostate removed in 21 and I've been cancer free ever since. So I just started recovering after that. So it was a fast track to another surreal feeling,
Yeah.
kind of like back to that getting called up for the first time, talking about uh, seeing the world different and having a surreal feeling. Have somebody call you and tell you have cancer. That's a eye opener for sure.
Yeah. How did your, I guess, baseball preparation and mental game help you get through that?
It went right into baseball mode. It went right into baseball mode. I mean, I remember where I was, and I remember getting the call, and I remember getting off the phone. He, said a lot of stuff after he told me, so I probably forgot some of the things he said. But I just remember sitting down and I just go, "Huh, I have cancer," and it was immediately, and it was going that way anyway. So I kind of knew. So this is a validation, but
Mhm.
that doesn't make it any easier. But it was just, I literally, I was flying to Denver that weekend to see my daughter from Phoenix, and I had a couple hours before I went. So I walked to a place to eat, and I remember walking out of my place, and I saw things. It was like brighter almost. It was like, oh my God, I have cancer. You know what I mean? It was almost calming in a way. And that sounds kind of, I hope that's not insensitive to sound, but it almost is calming. I think probably because, okay, now I know. And then my baseball instincts immediately kicked in to, okay, doc, what do we do? Where do we go from here? When can we do this? You know what I mean? I didn't cry about it. I didn't ask myself, why me?
Hmm.
All this kind of stuff. It was just, okay, where do we go? I was just going forward, going forward, going forward. What do we do now? What do we do? So more meetings, and then it got real when they called and said, okay, your surgery is January 5th, 2021. That's when it really hit me.
Hmm.
That's when it kind of knocked me back. Like, oh God, this is happening. I'm having surgery. I'm getting this out. After all the meetings and doing my own research online of prostate cancer and all the whatever side effects and this and that, the good and the bad. I'm going through it, and then that's when it hit me right in the chest. That, oh man, I'm gonna have surgery. This is really happening. But my instincts just took over. Okay, let's go for it. What's next? How do we, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So I think the baseball training, I think just the motivation and the drive of an athlete, I think helped me get through it better. Um, and surgery was successful, and recovery was the worst thing ever in the entire life physically. I've never felt so bad in my entire life. It was awful.
Just
I
no
wouldn't.
energy.
I
Weak.
just, you just can't. I just couldn't move. I mean,
Yeah.
my stomach. It was a robotic prostatectomy they call. So they make 6 incisions in my stomach, and they put in all these whatever different tubes. One's lighting and one's this and that, and then they expand your stomach of this gas so they can get in there and see. And the guy sitting next to it on a computer screen, like a little toggle, and just takes it out robotically.
Mm.
But it felt like I'd done 10,000 crunches for the first time in my life. The catheter is no fun, but my body, I never felt so awful in my entire life for at least 2 months. It was,
Mm.
it was terrible, but necessary. And, luckily I'm cancer free ever since, but it's not a recovery that I want anybody to have to go through. So anybody out there who's whatever, 45, 50 or whatever, get your PSA check now. Um, and get it done, do what you need to do with that. It's not fun.
Yeah. I'm in that boat, right?
So,
45 now,
so
and
keep
like,
an
man,
eye on.
start getting some checkups here.
Yeah, keep an eye on that number, because you don't want to do it. I'm telling you, you don't want. I mean, it's unfortunate because most guys at some point in your life is going to happen, just because of it's just a gland that does that as we get older. So just keep an eye on, because I didn't have any symptoms of cancer. I didn't have it, because when it swells, it puts pressure, and that's why guys have problems going to the bathroom. I didn't have any signs, any symptoms whatsoever other than my PSA number. So because mine was not swollen, it wasn't putting pressure, it wasn't giving me symptoms.
Yeah.
It was actually getting hard, and it's just cancer. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So I didn't have the symptoms. So if I hadn't checked, because based on my numbers, my doctor said I probably had it in 2018, based on what my numbers were. So 2 years later, so I probably had it for 2 years, and then 2 years later, we kind of definitely find it. So who knows? In 2 more years, it could have spread, and I might not be here. And that's the scary part about any cancer, is if it spreads from where it is and gets into your body. That's a bad road too. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I went on my own and did it, and got it done.
Yeah,
It
man.
changed.
Glad
It
you're doing
changed my.
well.
It changed my life in all positive ways. It changed my demeanor. It changed my patience. It made me see things different. Um, I'm not. I don't care about waiting in line anymore. I was impatient growing
Okay.
up.
Yeah.
Things in my life, how I see things in my life. I don't get out of bed at all any day. I don't get out of bed until I tell myself it's going to be a great day.
Mm.
So it has helped me choose happy, and it has helped me learn that I am in control of my emotions, and I choose happy, and I'm a better person because of cancer. It did nothing but change me. And then 6 months ago, a friend of mine who I went to high school with called me and said, "Hey, I got prostate cancer too. Can you help me through this?" So I helped him through it as much as I could, support wise. I was like, well, there's another reason why I got it. That's
Right.
one reason why I got it right there. You know what I mean? So I can help somebody else. So it wasn't about me, but I got it for a reason.
Mm.
It changed me as a person. It changed my life in all positive ways. I don't wish it to happen again, but it changed me. It's helped me as an instructor now, as a person, as a father, everything. It's literally life changing experience. Getting
Mm.
cancer.
Yeah, you mentioned the word calming, right? And I wonder if that calming effect, and I don't know what your spiritual background is, but if that was kind of a connection there, right, with the calming and spiritual part of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm religious. I am spiritual,
Hmm.
but it did make me more of a believer of something. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Sure.
I believe, and over the years, the past year, especially moving down here, I've gotten into energy and the earth and the world, and
Yeah.
because when you know, and because when you meet somebody and you don't hit off with somebody, it's not personal at all. It's the energy of that person, and you start to realize when you're around negative people, get away. You realize positive people. So the more in tune I got with myself, the better. And then the more I was learning that, and then this happened.
Mm.
So it happened at a good time for me to be able to handle it and be able to handle it the way I did. Because if I would have got it 10 years ago, it might have been different. You know what I mean? So it was a perfect storm of my faith and that happening. So it strengthened both.
Yeah. It's almost like that inner vibration, right, of
Yeah.
kind of what you're exuding, right? And
Yeah.
you got this calming effect. You say you're more patient around the people, instead just standing in line, right? Just
Great.
I'm not worried about the things that would set me off earlier.
I am less stressed now that I had cancer than I was before, put it that
Yeah.
way.
So
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to explain, but I mean, people that other people that probably had cancer and hopefully can understand that a little bit. But if somebody that they know, whatever, maybe see some change. But
Hmm. Well, that's awesome, and that's awesome you've been able to help someone else, to get through that process, and um, maybe somebody that had a complete different approach on maybe I guess maybe the freaked out side of it, right? Like this could end my
right,
life. All these things could happen. So that's kudos to you for doing that. That's
right.
incredible.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on. Followed you. Anytime like I can get a big leaguer on here. Like I said, we didn't know each other prior to this call. Just we played against each other. I love hearing stories about kind of what you went through and your role. Like, how did you get to the big leagues? What were your hurdles? And of course, in life, hurdles continue to happen.
Yeah.
Um, with stuff that we can't control in the circumstances that come into our lives. So I'm glad you're still in the game, helping
Yeah.
out both
Me
boys
too.
and girls in Arizona. How can if someone's out in the Scottsdale area, how can they reach out to you if they're looking for a potential hitting instructor?
They can go to. I'm at the DBAT Scottsdale. There's kind of four of them in the area. There's one in Mesa and Peoria and Avondale or Avondale, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
So they can go to dbatscottsdale.com or whatever, and they can pull me up there, or pull up bios and whatever. They can schedule lessons online. And they can get my email on there and email me if they want to. So uh, yeah, anybody who's in Scottsdale, come out to Scott. We're right over we're literally across the street from Talking Stick Field. We're in the
Okay. Yeah.
Talking Stick Pavilion. Yeah, the 101 in Indian Bend. So it's right by Salt River Field. So uh, yeah, look me up.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yes, if you guys are in the area, check Lee
Yeah,
out. Go get some hitting advice from him. And I mean, there's something different about working with an instructor that has actually been there, done that, right? Um, and I'm sure it's probably changed you this whole process with the patience of working with people. Would you say?
oh,
And kids.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And even coaching with the Rockies helped that. But yeah, it's not. I I want to get to know the kid to start with. I try to keep talk about life a little bit, not just hey Johnny, nice to meet you. Let's get into your mechanics right away. You know what I mean? So just try to get their trust and we have fun and try to get them to come back and keep loving the game. I just want them to love the game and come back and not make it a lesson feel like it's an hour of work
Mm,
or a chore, you know what I mean? So I want to, keep coming back, and as things progress, then you get a little more serious or whatever. But yeah, I just got to have fun with the kids, and so they have fun. It's a fun game. It
Yep.
needs to be fun. Have fun with it. The 10-year-old shouldn't be worried about playing in the big leagues right now. So just go have some fun, hit the ball.
Yeah. Just enjoy the process. Be
Yeah,
here now. Play the game.
exactly.
Very cool. Well, Lee, I appreciate you, man. Great meeting you.
Look, I'll hit you up when I'm out in Vegas too.
Yeah, great story. Maybe play some golf out here. We got a lot of courses like Scottsdale and Arizona. So
Absolutely. I'll throw them in
yeah,
the car.
awesome, man. We'll keep in touch and best of
Will
luck
do.
to you in the
Thank
rest of
you.
the All
Thanks,
right.
Ted. I appreciate it.
All right. His hitting philosophy as he was a hitting coach and just kind of the mental part of the aspect of hitting and where he was able to also, after his playing career, he was diagnosed with some cancer and how he has battled through that and how baseball and the mental game help him get through that. So enjoy this conversation with Lee Stevens.